So this moment, because if people are really listening to this conversation and they've seen Love is Blind, they've seen that final moment, I want to be careful to not let Cole off the hook because he was very insensitive with Zenab on a number of issues. And he said things that even he admitted looking back, he was embarrassed and he wished he hadn't said. And many of us watching the interaction said, ooh, oh, hey, that's probably not the right way to approach it. Sometimes we just wish we could put the words back on our mouth. And this is why Harville Hendrix says that talking is the most dangerous thing that couples do. And you get these misunderstandings and these misattunements, and things that we say hit a wounded part of our partner. We say it in the wrong way. We maybe say it with malicious intent, all kinds of stuff going on. So just again, in that moment, there's a real lack of awareness in Cole about how those comments might be received. And as you're saying, Zenab's got her projection about who he is and how he sees her, and that he's got this secret ulterior motive to change her or make her lose weight or whatever that was about.
So there's two separate experiences going on, and they're not really sharing that with each other. She particularly isn't sharing for him like, hey, this thing is affecting me. I'm having these thoughts, I'm having these feelings when we're having this conversation about food or what have you. And that withholding and that inability to repair, we'll talk about repair, is crucial to the turning point. Can we make something better from the situation, or does it get worse? It got worse in that situation because it was never talked about. There's something that a relationship scientist called the Gottmans out of Seattle, Gottman, have called the Four Horsemen, the Four Horsemen in relationship. And they discovered that there's four main things that in conversation and in how we live with each other that really will turn your relationship negative, turn it bad. And that's criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. We all do some or all of these things from time to time with each other, and inevitably they always lead to bad results. And we have to figure out how to avoid criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling in our relationships. Because when I receive criticism, I shut down. I put my hand up. I don't want to listen to what the person has to say, even though they might be having legitimate feelings about something that I did or said. And I may have been an idiot. I can really relate to Cole on this show because he just bumbles around and he's clowny sometimes and he just says whatever's on his mind. And that's part of what makes him an exciting person. And he screws up and he says things that hurt people's feelings. He says things that he regrets. And we're all going to do that. But if the only way that you try to change a guy like Cole is with criticism, contempt, right? It's not going to work. It's just going to shut him down. It's going to push him away. And so if you look up the antidotes to the Four Horsemen that the Gottmans have, it's the gentle startup, which is really talking about, hey, this is something that I'm experiencing. And these are the feelings that I'm having about this right now, or about this conversation that we had earlier. And really just like sharing what's going on for you rather than throwing criticism at the other person. Appreciation, building a culture of appreciation in your relationship rather than what you might call character assassination. That's what contempt is sometimes. And we do that to each other, and learning to lean away from that and lean towards appreciating what you do appreciate about that person. Spend more time there than on contempt. Taking responsibility for what you've done wrong and for hearing your partner's perspective, and self-soothing. So that stuff's easily Googleable, but I just want people to know that if you want to rely on just a few guidelines in your relationship to hold on to, look up the Four Horsemen and make that your mainstay. Stick it on your wall, because if you just focus on those things, you're going to get through the power struggle phase in a much better way than otherwise. So criticism is what you brought up between Zenab and Cole, and it's crucial.
These unresolved issues, things like the towels, things like comments about weight, sensitivity around food, this is not unique to this couple. These are things that every couple deals with. And I imagine most women that I would speak with, no matter how confident or secure they are, they wouldn't appreciate some of the insensitive comments that we saw made on that show, not just between Cole and Zenab, but other couples. These unresolved moments, these unresolved issues between couples, they typically become bigger issues. These challenges cycle, and people go deeper into sometimes the Four Horsemen in response, but they can have other ways of dealing, other ways of coping with the situation as well. And they can choose exits. They can choose to exit their relationship in very subtle ways, in functional or intentional ways. Like the way that we saw Bartiste deal with his discomfort with Nancy by putting his head down into his work. There's a couple of scenes where we see him just looking at his computer, not looking at her,
Checked out.
checked out because of the discomfort and how much stress he was under in that situation. Now, any of us in this situation, I imagine, would be stressed out. But the point is, you can use something as a mask to avoid dealing with an issue at hand or something significant going on in our partnership. And one of the things we focus on in the Conscious Relationship Council is how do we bring resolution to these issues? How do we work on the most radioactive or difficult things in our relationship? How can we have a safe conversation about that? What is it that we need to embody? What is it that we need to understand? What's the new paradigm that we need to take on in order to transform some of these moments? So an example, when Zenim comes in the room and she's criticizing being passive aggressive with Cole, what would it have been like for him to stand up, the suitcase is open all over the floor, what would it have been like for him to stand up, come over to her, and maybe put his hands on her hips or to take her hands and say, hey, is this an important issue, the towels? And is this something that we really need to work on? And is this a way I can love you better? Or for him to really show presence with it, not taking it personally, not even critiquing her way of bringing it, but just holding space for, okay, is this really important to you? And I want to get that. And showing her that he's seeking understanding. How might it have transformed the entire rest of the dynamic of their relationship if he and her could do that? To be present and attentive with one another. But most of us don't learn to do this. Our family systems teach us other things, and our family or our parents, our caretakers, are often preoccupied with their own stress, their own dramas, their own troubles, and the unresolved stuff from their childhood. So it's difficult for them to show up perfectly. No parent is perfect. There's going to be less than ideal stuff. There's going to be misattunements. Parents are going to forget. They're going to make mistakes. They might get triggered in their own way.